How the heck are you guys? It is good to be back. It is Tuesday. The Friendly Giant is in his element. Hold on, let me close this because I don't want notification noises popping up. Make sure this is silent. Okay. Oh crap, I forgot to pull up the feed. So, it is Tuesday. How are you guys? Have you had an amazing week so far? Yes, I hope that you have. I definitely did. Hans, what's up? Happy to have you on. And and Elliot, what is up? So, thank you, Hans, for the Happy Tuesday wishes. It is good to be back. If you missed last night's live, you need to go back and watch it. It is done. I did it on my cell phone in my office here, but you need to go and watch it. So make sure that you do that. And I just realized, man, the light, the sun. This is the thing when you use the sun as your key light. Sometimes you get little areas like this that are all blown out. Anyway, pay no attention to that or the Stormtrooper or the Darth Vader or all the Star Wars toys. Okay, just kidding. Today I want to take a dive into the origin story. Okay, and I'm going to get more into that, but that is our focus today, and I have a lot of stuff prepared, and so we'll get into it. I have something to say, a tiny rant, and then we will get into it. Sound good? Here we go. Okay, it is Tuesday, and we are in the swing of things, right? Today, I did a lot of stuff. I actually mowed the lawn because it was really long. I had been out of town, and all that stuff. So I did that, and then just getting back in the swing of things after being back from Phoenix, doing 2 workshops, and then going to the 2 Comma Club X coaching event. I went to a baseball game, and I had lots of driving time, and it was just incredible. Today, I'm back at it, and we're going to be talking about origin stories. But before I go into this, I just want to address something. And this isn't like, I've only had one person say this, and this isn't a dig at who mentioned this to me. But somebody's like, man, like, I wish I could watch your lives. They're just so long. And I know that this series, there have been longer. Usually I don't go this long go that long in Facebook Lives. But like this stuff is like literally like masterclass level teaching and showing you. Like if any of you have watched it, like Hans and Colleen, what's up? You guys can vouch for this. Like the content that I have been delivering is like fire bombs. And yes, I'm going like super deep dive on this stuff because I want you to really understand it. And I'm spending a lot of time researching and doing this. Like if I had a course that had like the content in there is like less than half of the stuff that I've delivered over the last 2.5, 3 weeks. And I charged, $2,000 for it. So like, I know that these are longer, but I promise you that it is absolutely worth it. If I were to charge each one of you for each one of these sessions, that would be $1,000. Like that's how much time I am giving into it and those kinds of things. And obviously, like sometimes it's just not the right time for you to take these deep dives, right? And so when that happens, these are always living on the page. You can go back and review them and watch through them at any time. But then also, you might just want to be able to condense your timeline and move the needle for you. And so we can book a 90-minute call, and you invest money into that, and we can get you some very specific and guided movement with your story and stuff. Okay, so little side rant is like, I know that these are longer than I usually do, and like it takes time. And with all the consuming of all the other things that you're doing, that this might not be a priority, so you put it away, and that's fine. I have no hard feelings for you. But those who have watched know the value, and they're the ones that this is for. They make the time and they are applying the stuff. Like my buddy Lance, he's going to watch the replay because he had something that came up that he had to do tonight, right? Colleen is here. Kurt, Hans, it's just awesome. We have Keith and Lance, you're on. You sneaky devil. No, but so I know that they're longer and it's an investment in time. And I'm promising you the lessons that you've learned, you can ask any of the people who have been watching, my regular watchers. That investment of time, has it condensed and given you breakthroughs with your stories? And seeing how you can use your stories to actually make money with them in your business. That's what this is all about. It's just not Nick talking for the sake of Nick talking. Like, I want you to see that it's doable. Okay, I preached about tell your story for your business, like all the time, like for the last year and a half. But I'm showing you like legitimate, like proof that it works. Okay. And so I'm doing research on my end. And anyway, that's what it is. So thank you to those who invest the time. And I promise you that you're going to get something out of these. And any of these people who have been watching me from the beginning or who've watched several of these can vouch that they are they're pretty darn awesome. not to be all like, oh, look at me, but like I'm bringing in the value and the fire bombs for you guys. Okay, Han says, dude, we can always revisit what we missed. Actual photo of your lives. Fire, right? So with that said, let's dive in to origin stories. Are you cool with that? Oh no, I've got a little light coming through my blind. I need to like set up diffusion on my windows. Get into my nerdiness of film. So I'm gonna throw. Oh, it's weird. Why won't it let me put your comment up there? There it goes. There's Hans's handsome face. I love that guy. And then Colleen. I'm trying to get. Yes. Okay. So what the heck is an origin story? What does that mean within business? Like that, like it's confusing to some people, right? If you come from different entrepreneurial ways of thinking, the origin story is like the why of your business. Like, why did you get into business? Why do you do what you do? Why are you so passionate about it, right? And so the reason you need to cultivate and develop an origin story is to help people to get to know you and what you're all about. Now, some of you who are watching are coming over from the One Funnel Away Challenge. I'm an ambassador over there. This is not like official One Funnel Away training or anything like that. But today, you guys in your training were taught to develop your Epiphany Bridge story, which is another way of saying your origin story. And so I'm just going to lean forward so that light doesn't keep shining me in the eye. So with an origin story, just like I've talked about in all types of stories for your business, you want to begin with the end in mind. What is the purpose? What do you want the audience to feel, think, or do as a result of hearing your story? Now, specifically with an origin story, there are some definite things that you want them to feel, think, and do, regardless of what type of business you're in or what you do for a living, okay? You definitely want them to feel connected to you, to feel, some personal connection, or that they know you on a deeper level. Sorry about the hiccups. You want them to be thinking about how their life would be better as a result of having you in it, like whether they pay you as a coach or have you come and fix their plumbing or whatever. And then you want them to obviously take action, call you, book a call, schedule a consultation, whatever it is, right? You want them to become your partner in things. Now, with a great origin story, you really dive into the struggle, the conflict, the things that were going on in your life, that led you to make big changes. So if you're watching this and if you're the note-taking kind, begin with the end in mind. What is it like when we're talking specifically about origin stories? So this is your why. This is you talking about why and how you got into what you're doing now, business-wise, right? So you do that and kind of determine what you want that feel, think, and do to be for your origin story. Now, I get asked this all the time, and this question actually came up. I did a post in the One Funnel Away Challenge group to just give some tips, and my focus today was on the begin with the end in mind with that group. And so the question I get is like, where do I start then? Like, how far back do I go? All of those kinds of things. Now, again, you know your business, you know your journey, you know the things that happened in your life that set you on the path that you're on. And so the story will start to reveal itself. You might know already, like that. I'm trying to remember the lady's name in One Funnel Away. Like, she was in MLM, and then she transitions, and now she helps entrepreneurs get leads and all of that stuff, right? And so with that, you might know the journey. You might be stuck, and you're not sure what to even do, what to even talk about. But when you think of the beginning, where do you start? Find the point of conflict that sets you on the path. Not the thing that like the immediate change, but the conflict, the pain that came into your life that started you on the journey to becoming who you are. Okay, so I'm a big superhero nerd. I'm going to use superhero examples. Okay, so if this is over your head, don't think oh, I haven't seen Spider-Man or Superman or Batman or those things. Don't stress about that. Think I'm using them as an example. Again, you don't have to know it. I will tell you the stories, but look at the journey. Okay, that takes us on as an audience. So superheroes. Superman is my favorite superhero. I wish that we could get some good Superman movies again. I loved the 1978, I think it was, version of Superman. Christopher Reeve, the very first one, and that's the one that I'll use in my example today. And then, of course, we know Batman, his origin story. Superhero movies are the origin story, just the perfect example of origin stories, right? So let's look at Superman. Like I told you, where do I begin with my origin story? The point of conflict, right? Superman, what is the point of conflict that starts Superman's journey? For him, it started when he was a baby, right? He lived on Krypton, and Krypton, the planet was collapsing, and his dad, Jor-El, wanted to save him from the destruction of the planet. And so he and his wife sent baby Kal-El off on a journey and saved his life. So literally the conflict for him was his planet was going to blow up, and his dad sent him off to save his life, right? Let's look at Batman as an example of his origin story. When did the point of conflict come for Batman? It wasn't when the Joker rolled on the scene, right? He was already Batman, right? What's up, Val? Intently listening. Excellent. And yes, this is all you. I'm talking about where to begin. Okay. So Batman, his origin story doesn't start when he's a baby, right? It doesn't start when the Joker comes on the scene, or Penguin, or this other villain. It starts when he's a boy and he goes to the theater with his mom and dad, and his mom and dad are mugged and murdered in an alleyway. That is the conflict that set him on the path to becoming Batman. Okay? Let's look at Spider-Man. What was the conflict? What was the thing that happened that started him to become Spider-Man? Really, it was him being a nerd and being bitten by a radioactive spider. It was super, instant. And so he had that conflict. He was being bullied and all that kind of stuff. And then an external source gave him powers, and he started on his journey, right? So in each one of those, you can see Superman's origin story started when he was a baby. That was the point of conflict that set him on his journey. Batman started when he was a young boy, right? With his parents being murdered. Spider-Man was a teenager when his conflict was going. Iron Man, he was already a billionaire, playboy, philanthropist But then it wasn't until he was grown up that his convoy, after doing a weapons demonstration, was attacked. That was the conflict that came into his world that started him, that forced him to become Iron Man, right? So you see those 4 examples, the conflict starts in different areas. So with you, think back, and you might be writing this down or thinking about it. Aaron, what's up? Ron? You are the best. So think of your story and your experiences, and especially with what you're doing now in your business. Again, we're talking about your origin story, what you're doing right now in your business. And you might just be barely beginning and starting to build your business, or you've been doing something for years. That does not matter, okay? Don't be like, well, I just started. How do I tell an origin story? You don't have to be on top of the mountain to tell your origin story. That's the fun, is like when you tell it when you're not really established super well. The audience becomes endeared to you and connects with you through the origin story, then follows you on the journey. That's why the Marvel movies are, over the last 11 years, that we have watched over and over and over, because we fell in love with these characters and we watched them on the journey. We've seen them progress, right? And we're going to see Endgame on Thursday, so finally I'll be able to talk spoilers with the people who who want to. Aaron, looking at your comment, how do we put logos on live feeds? I will do another one that kind of talks about the platform that I use for publishing my Facebook Lives. How's that sound? That will be one for this week. So find the point of conflict in your story. What was going on? Like for me in my origin story, right? And the other thing I'll just make a point is like, it doesn't have to just be one experience that's your origin story. It's a series of experiences. Like I'll use examples of Superman and all of the experiences that he had that created Superman. Okay, so the traveler hero, cool. So where was I going? Where was I? Oh yeah, you don't have to have just one singular story. You piece things together. So find the conflict. In my origin story, that's where I was. In my origin story, the conflict comes from failing as a financial advisor. I was fired for not hitting my sales numbers, right? I wasn't going to hit my quota, and I knew that I was going to be canned. So it was like, what do I want to do when I grow up? And so I decided I wanted to follow my creative passions and do videos and make videos for people. And it's amazing. Like through that journey, I always had that passion and the fun and the hobby of wanting to create videos. I told or made mock episodes of Cops with my buddies with our old RCA VHS shoulder camcorder. You know, you children of the 80s know what I'm talking about. So, I started a company because I wanted to, and it was something that I felt I would enjoy. And I didn't even have a camera. I had to borrow one from my dad, and that led to me becoming a freelance photojournalist for the NBC affiliate, working on feature films, and then working on TV series, and working on commercials, and learning from all these master storytellers. That's all part of my origin story. The conflict, the thing that set me on the path to where I'm at today, was me getting fired as a financial advisor. Okay? So Val, you were talking about like you started an MLM and transitioned to helping entrepreneurs find leads and things like that, and that's what you're working on. So for you in your example, and I typed this out in the comment, but it's better to talk it through, right? Face to face, so to speak. So, think of when you were at MLM, like how did you get involved in it? What were the things that excited you or enticed you about getting into network marketing? And what were the things you loved about it? What were the things you hated about it? As you think about those things, that will kind of help you. And this goes for everybody. I'm using Val as an example specifically. But those are the things that help you kind of see where your frame of mind was at. Like, was there something that happened within the MLM company that you just got fed up with? Were you tired of always, like, this is just me, guessing, so I don't know stuff, your deep story, right? But like, was it, the nature of MLM? You're always churning and trying to find new people because people drop off all the time. Like, was that experience what led you to want to get leads, consistent leads of people coming in into their business for entrepreneurs? Like, those kinds of things. As you think about those and think about it that way, you'll start to see where that conflict is, and you'll know where to start. Like, you don't have to start when you were a 14-year-old girl living wherever and how you had this and that experience, right? If you find the point of conflict, and if that point of conflict that set you on the path that you're on right now in a very specific way was when you're 14, share it. Just like Batman, his happened when he's a boy, Spider-Man when he's a teenager, Superman when he's a baby, right? So, yes, okay. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at Val, your comments. I got in without knowing, but I'm not a quitter, so I worked and learned. And yes on the leads. So, do you see, like, this is just like where this is one of my superpowers. Like, I could see that MLM thing, and I'm just looking at through my experience, like that you that might have been why you transitioned to it. So like that is where you begin, right? You're helping entrepreneurs gain leads. Why? Because I started my entrepreneurial journey in network marketing and MLM stuff. And I remember being so excited about being able to be in control of my destiny and being able to have the income that I wanted and to serve people and all these kinds of things. The trouble I found is that even though I had a great product, I had a hard time finding new people. I talked to all my family. Some of them were interested, some of them weren't. How did I find new people? And whether you quit because it was it was difficult or whatever, whatever your experiences was, like that is like kind of the journey. Do you see what I mean there? I'm going to throw that up on the screen. So helpful. That's what I'm going for. I want to help you guys understand that you can find it, and you might need some guidance, right? And so now the next part of your origin story, right, is you start in the conflict, but who are the key players? Who are the other people around you that either supported you or were the bad guy or those kinds of things? I am a huge Star Wars nerd, and Star Wars is a great framework of how a story is crafted. And the introduction of characters in Star Wars, 1977 Star Wars, is like a perfect example. Like we didn't get introduced to Luke Skywalker, who's the main character of Star Wars, right? Right at the beginning. We meet, first two main characters we meet are R2 and 3PO. And the reason we meet R2 and 3PO is because of them that we meet Luke Skywalker, right? We meet R2 and 3PO. We see Darth Vader. We meet the Empire and the Stormtroopers and Princess Leia. Then in all of the chaos of things, the droids escape with a message from the princess that goes down to this place where Luke just happens to be, and they end up in his home, right? So you start to identify the characters. Who are the R2-D2? Who is the thing that kind of brings the conflict to you? R2-D2 and C-3PO brought the conflict to Luke Skywalker, right? Because they were in this fight that he had zero involvement in and came into his world, thus bringing all the challenges with it, right? So who is that character? Who is the Obi-Wan Kenobi? Who is like the guide, your mentor, the person that you look for? And if it wasn't a person one-on-one, like the people whose books you read, the podcasts that you listened to, the videos that you were inspired by, whoever that was, who was that Obi-Wan Kenobi mentor type of person, right? Then you have the other supporting characters like Han Solo and Chewbacca and things like that. And then you have the Empire, the bad guys. Who are the bad guys in the story? Who is it that was bringing, the conflict coming to you could come from, one of the bad guys or just one of your other friends who's in your life now, right? Identify who the bad guy is, the enemy. There's always a good versus evil in an origin story, right? Superman has Lex Luthor, right? Batman has the Joker. Spider-Man in the Tobey Maguire ones. The first one was the Green Goblin, right? The in Star Wars, the Empire the Rebellion has the Empire, right? So there was somebody else that commented and was wondering about, like, when you're identifying the other characters in your story, how specific? Do you name them by name, or do you keep it vague, like my boyfriend or my kids, or do you name them by name? That is all a comfort issue. Like if the boyfriend or something is like the bad guy in the story, and I'm not saying that is in this person's story that's the case, but just using it as an example. Calling them out by name could bring some negative consequences to them that you didn't intend. So it could just be like my ex-boyfriend, or, just keep it broad like that. But if it's like, for me, the conflict that came into me was from MetLife Securities, right? From the people in the firm that worked for the firm, that made things extra difficult for me, that set me up to fail, which then, set me up to win. That's the thing. I say financial advisor as my broad term. I failed as a financial advisor, my firm, right? So you can find that balance. It's just what you're comfortable with. If you feel and are worried that sharing by name or things like that could bring negative consequences or extra negative attention to you or to the people, even if you harbor harsh feelings towards them, keep it generic. But you can also, be very specific if you feel that's just a judgment call, okay? Yes, Val asks, does the bad guy have to be a person? I'm going to put this up on the screen so you know what we're talking about here. The bad guy does not have to be a person. Like she said, it could be an entity. Like for me, part of the bad guy was I wanted to create my own thing. I was sick and tired of working in a cubicle farm or working lots of hours doing stuff for somebody else's vision to line somebody else's pockets, and I would just get a little piece of it, right? So no, it does not have to be a person. It could be quitting the 9-to-5. It could be stepping out of your corporate America job. It could be, the people who said you couldn't do it, all those kinds of things. So yes, it can be a mixture of actual physical people and personalities, or it can be an entity. That's a great question, Val. Thank you. So let me grab a drink. How is this making sense so far? I know I'm kind of going deep, but is this making sense? If it is, go in the comments. Give me some hearts and thumbs up. I'm going to grab a drink really quick. Okay. So here we go. I want to show you the journey. I have these notes here. Let me see. So your origin story. You need to give the people these things. Okay. And I'll put together. How's this? I'll share this stuff, but I'll put together a PDF that if you want it, you will drop your email address, and I will send it to you. Okay, I'm stumbling over. I'm just coming up with something on the fly here. I will put this all together in a PDF for you guys to look at too, okay? So you can, if you're taking notes, this is great. Write down what resonates with you. Don't worry so much about writing down exactly what I'm saying, because I'll create the PDF, and if you're interested, I will get it to you. But if you focus and write down the things that you feel or the thoughts that you have as a result of what I tell you, okay? Make that, because that's where the gold lies in your going with your stories, okay? So, yes, Val, you're going to kick butt at this tomorrow. That's great. I can't wait. Make sure you share with me as you guys do this. Okay, so for a component of an origin story, what things it has to do in order for it to be successful. Okay. First, you need to give your audience a reason to care about you. Again, personal connection. You need to prove yourself to them. Like that you're not perfect. You're not the chosen one. That you're proving yourself. Keep your background simple. Don't get too crazy with it. And that's good. Give the story a happy ending, right? Even if you haven't got the results that you're wanting and you're working towards, just focus on the macro level of the happiness and the joy and the progress that comes from it, right? Then tie your origin story to a villain, right? Build through transformation, right? Again, you're not a perfect being who just had this thing and you figured it out. You changed. You progressed. You went from, like Spider-Man, who was a weak, nerdy kid that was being bullied, to the amazing Spider-Man, right? And saving New York City over and over and over again from lots of villains, right? Then share failures and missteps. This is huge because, again, it makes you relatable and shows the growth, shows that you have gone through transformation. Be vulnerable, right? Share things that are scary to you. I always talk about vulnerability in entrepreneurship and storytelling is the fact that you're putting it out there in the first place. You can say vulnerability is telling some sob story and crying and all that stuff. I say no to that. I think that that's something that we've been programmed. Vulnerability, in my eyes, is you taking your story and putting it out there because you have no control over what the audience does. You can try to make them accept or love or do whatever, but again, ultimately it's up to them. So that's where I see vulnerability coming in. The story has to be true. Don't make up a fake story, okay? That will blow up in your face. Focus on reducing confusion. Again, simplicity. And then just use also specific details as specific as you can, okay? So those are just some things to keep in mind with your origin story, things that go into it. So typically an origin story, especially like the superhero model, comes from one of three areas, right? Your journey that you're on right now is, I bet if we went down the line, everyone that's on this or watches this, that your journey, your origin story, what led you to doing what you're doing right now comes from one of these three areas. One is trauma, right? You had a traumatic event that changed your course and just put you on a different path. Batman is an example of trauma. The murder and death of his parents set him on a new path to becoming Batman years later, right? Then there's destiny, where you've just always had a purpose. Superman is an example of destiny. Is he a perfect being? No. Kryptonite is his weakness, right? All of those kinds of things. But he was destined to become Superman. This is where he always had those powers from the time he was a baby. His first time coming on Earth, Ma and Pa Kent see his little ship crash. They get a flat tire from swerving and all this type of stuff. And in the movie, Pa Kent is changing the tire and the truck shifts off of the jack and is about to fall on him, but baby Superman is just holding up the truck, right? He always had the powers. It wasn't until he went through a journey to discover and hone and understand those powers that he finally became Superman. Okay? And then the third one is chance, right? You have an opportunity that comes like seemingly out of nowhere that changes your path or changes your direction. Spider-Man is an example of chance. He was bitten by a radioactive spider. That was like chance, right? But it changed his life. Okay, so origin story, like if you can identify which one of those three that you come from, that you are coming from, that just helps you kind of know the type of story to craft and follow, like, you know, with some of those things. Okay, this is me getting in like super nerdy on a couple things, right? But so Who are some... I don't want to go through... I've been talking about superheroes, but let me talk about a couple of like practical examples of entrepreneurs who have incredible origin stories, okay? You cool with that? I'm going to grab another drink. Let me know your thoughts. Are you still with me, or did I lose any of you going through any of that stuff? Integrity first, real talk. Exactly. Exactly, Val. So, I want to share a couple of examples of simple, like these are like 2 sentences long origin stories. So I know we think of like, oh, I can't write a whole big Superman story where he comes from Krypton and becomes, then he grows up in Smallville, and then when his adopted father passes away when he's 18, he leaves Smallville to go create that fortress of solitude and to learn about his powers and his heritage and all that kind of stuff. Then to move to Metropolis and assume the identity of Clark Kent, and then finally when Lois Lane gets in trouble and a helicopter that she's in is like falling, that's when Superman comes out, right? That could seem intimidating to flesh out the whole thing. I totally get that. It's good to flesh it out, but I want to show you, I'm going to share these examples of entrepreneurs, of business owners that it's just like a 1 to 2 sentence summary of their origin story. And you can see how it resonates because it works on the surface level. It's just a brief explanation, but also a lot of these we know through the years of experiencing their origin story and following them on their journey, the growth that they've had, okay? So, Nike. Origin story of Nike. Does anybody know it offhand? Phil Knight, who's the founder of Nike, started out selling shoes out of his trunk at track meets. That's how Nike got started. That's the origin story of Nike. Selling shoes out of the trunk of his car at track meets, right? Now there's lots more that goes to it, but like one of the most recognizable brands on earth started simple like that, right? Spanx, Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, first got her product into stores by demonstrating them herself to store buyers while wearing form-fitting white pants. Okay? That's how Spanx got started, and that turned into a $250 million product. Okay? Brief origin story. Next one. Oprah Winfrey overcame sexual abuse and poverty to build a $4 billion media empire. Okay? We all know, like, that's the transformation, right? That's overcoming odds. That's the stuff that gets us to, like, man, she was abused, she was in poverty, and now she's a billionaire. Wow, right? Simple journey. Virgin Records. Richard Branson dropped out of high school and started a mail order record company. So as a teenager, he dropped out of high school because he didn't fit in. He started a mail order record company, which turned into Virgin Records, and we all know that Richard Branson's empire, you know, there's Virgin Mobile, there's Virgin Air, and all of these things, right? So we see that he had that transformation. Gary Vee is a good one as well, yes. I don't have him on this list. But like J.K. Rowling, she wrote Harry Potter at coffee shops while struggling as a single mother to make ends meet. From her struggle and her trials, her purpose was discovered. Apple started in a garage with friends building computers. We all know what Apple's turned into. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 Apple products sitting right here on my desk, right? There's another one back there, right? So, it started humble beginnings. Ben & Jerry's. This one was kind of funny. I didn't realize this. They were childhood friends, and they took a correspondence course on making ice cream. And that's how Ben & Jerry's got started. Warren Buffett, he bought pinball machines all around town and saved the revenue that he made from them. That's how he got started. And he grew, right? So again, you can break it down to the macro level. Like me, I was a failed financial advisor who decided he wanted to help businesses connect with their stories. And blah, 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 right? So you see, like, you can make it super simple like that, but also build it out. Okay? So, so using your origin story specifically in your business, again, you can have multiple versions of your origin story to be able to tell in different places. If you flesh out the main one, you can break down all the small things, right? So going, again, back to Superman, my favorite, he had his powers his entire life. He grew up in Smallville in a place where he had to withhold his greatness. He could outrun a train. He could score a touchdown every time he caught the ball, right? But he couldn't do that all the time because it would bring attention to his powers, and he didn't want that to happen. And so he was patient, and he went through his teenage years frustrated, but still learning and stuff from his mom and dad, his adopted mom and dad. Then when his dad has a heart attack and dies, after the funeral, he feels the call. He feels a greater purpose, and that he feels it's time to learn more about himself. So he packs up and he leaves Smallville, and he goes to the North Pole or the Arctic Circle. I can't remember if it's like specifically the North Pole offhand, but he created, like, this fortress of solitude has come, and there are all these crystals that have all of the wisdom from his father. Okay, he left and did that when he's 18. He spent 10 years studying, learning, understanding his power, his heritage, and his purpose. It was a long play, right? Even though he had the powers, he wanted to learn how to use them for good and to help the people that he was around. Does this sound familiar for any of you guys? Any of you guys been on this journey of discovery like that? Where you spent seemingly decades sometimes studying and struggling and doing all this stuff so you can better serve the people that you want to serve? Are you seeing some parallels here? Because if you're not, hello, McFly, it's you, right? So he's gone for 10 years, and then he finally comes and moves to Metropolis, becomes a journalist for the Daily Planet. And he takes on a persona. He doesn't like come in like, I'm Superman. He masks and disguises himself, right? Till he sees the right opportunities to serve and go out and do it. When he puts on his cape and he spins around or jumps in the phone booth, right? And it isn't until he sees somebody that he's close to or that he's connected to in peril that gets him to spring into action. And the cape comes out and he saves it, right? And then we know he goes on and like saves Metropolis and the world many times over, fighting Lex Luthor and other criminals and things like that, right? So, yes, a decade. Val's there. So, that journey that you go on, there are lots of different stories, like the story of him when he lifted the truck, the story of him leaving Krypton, the story of him at the football practice when he boots football like 9 million yards in the air, and when he outruns the train on the way home, and all of these things. There are smaller stories that make up the big one, right? So if you're having a hard time trying to piece the whole thing together, just find that point of conflict in your journey and start to flesh it out from there. Then you might see, like, then there might be a time like, oh, I remember this, and you come back a little bit and you add a little nugget here. Like, it doesn't have to go perfectly in sequential order, right? The Batman movies, right? We meet Batman when he's a grown-up. We meet not Clark Kent. We meet Bruce Wayne as an adult, and then we have those flashbacks to those moments that set him on the path, right? So you don't have to worry about like telling it all in a linear way. It'll start to make sense as you study it out, okay? Now, what you do with the origin story once you have it fleshed out. You can make an awesome video or something like that. You can partner with me and we create an amazing origin story video with you telling part of your story, and we find ways to do it. Like my Friendly Giant Films video, where I tell the story about going to the movies with my grandma. If you haven't seen it, go to friendlygiantfilms.com. It's right there at the top of the page. And you, like, that story did 4 things for me. It's an origin story of sorts. Like, that's the first time I told a story for my business, right? And I've talked about this in other lives where I wanted to create a personal connection. Give the audience a reason to care about this guy with a beard from Utah. Prove him or herself. Prove yourself. I wanted to establish authority, show that I knew what I was talking about, that I had a passion for stories, and that I was good at them. Like, I'd worked on 13 feature films. I went through my pedigree, proved myself. Keeping it simple, I just told a simple story from of who I was and where I was from. It was a true story, story about my grandma. If I made up some fake story about my grandma, and then years later, people do some research and they find out like my grandma was passed away before I was ever born, that is not going to work out well for me, right? But again, build a connection, establish authority, show the people what the world would be like with you in their world. Again, when Superman and Batman and stuff, when they start going out and solving crimes and busting bad guys, the comparison, both Gotham is full of corrupt cops and crime all over the place, right? That's how life was. That was reality for them. Batman introduced hope, right? So that's what you do with your story. You want to accomplish those 3 things. Personal connection, establish authority, and show the contrast of life with you versus without you for the audience. And as you share your personal story as to why you got into what you're doing, that personal connection is going to come super duper easy. They're going to see that you have the authority. Like Val in hers, it's been a decade that she's been working on the stuff. There's a lot to learn, even with if you consider yourself a failure, you're not. But if it's been a long time, you have a lot of wisdom and authority to be able to share and expertise with people. Okay, so there's that, and then paint that contrast of what it's like to be struggling every day for leads. Where am I going to get my next client? Where are these people going to come from? How do I get it there? And then you say, I can show you, or I can provide the vehicle for you that just has leads lining up, waiting to talk to you, right? That's using Val's example. Lance, we'll talk about plumbing. He's been doing it for a long time. He's seen everything that there possibly is. He has that authority. He shares something about what got him into it, in a profession that people normally consider disgusting, right? You see some pretty nasty stuff as a plumber, but there's also lots of other stuff that you wouldn't associate a plumber with, tankless water heaters and stuff like that. It's oh yeah, there's other cool stuff, but why you were totally into it, right? And then you talk about your pedigree. I've been doing this for the last 20 years or however long you've been doing this. And then show what life is like before them, before you, where you think everything's fine and you're sitting on a ticking time bomb and something goes kablamo, and I come in and take that and fix it and prevent it from happening again, right? That kind of stuff. Colleen, if she's watching still, she is taking people on understanding that she didn't get out of shape overnight. It was by a bunch of small steps in the wrong direction. And she understands and all that kind of stuff, how people can get there. But now as she's been making these changes as a result of this new idea, this new way of thinking, this new approach, that she is taking small steps back in the right direction and she's seeing results. So she's been on the path. She knows that it works. Come follow me and go and do this. Who can't resonate with somebody who's gone through a struggle and is overcoming it, or who has overcome it? It's impossible not to relate to somebody, right? And then you show, like, if you are sick and tired of, being out of breath or all of those negative things, working with me will help remove them, right? That's just a version or broad description of how you could paint your origin story. Just looking at no failure at all growing up. Exactly. That's the thing. Like, we see that we're our own biggest critics, and sometimes we don't see them always as growth experiences. We see them as failures, right? But again, it's not a failure. It's you've grown and you've learned, and you're so much better equipped to help people avoid those pitfalls when they inevitably come across their path in their business, right? Okay, so is that good? Like, give me some feedback really quick. We're about to wrap this up. So, just again, identifying the point of conflict, the thing that sets you on the path. Star Wars, the point of conflict is the story starts with conflict, right? The title crawl, the first words said on screen after a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, that gives us our setting, it is a period of civil war. We immediately know that there is turmoil going on in this world, that we're being introduced to, okay? Then it just compounds and gets more intense as the movie goes on, right? Ships are being chased and tractor beamed and captured, and droids are escaping, and then they're being chased, and the conflict, find the point of conflict, or the point when the conflict comes into your world. Like, if it was a trauma, like Bruce Wayne, his family was wealthy. They did all sorts of stuff. He was well off and everything. And they paint a little bit of a picture of how great life was with him and his parents. And then trauma, boom, something brings the conflict in. So, like, if your life was perfect and great and everything before, and then there was an event that caused the conflict to be thrust upon you, share those things. Otherwise, find where the conflict is and start there, okay? And then the path will start to reveal itself. As you, again, begin with the end in mind. I'm sitting here throwing my arm off screen. Begin with the end in mind. What do you want to accomplish with your origin story? What do you want the audience to feel, think, or do by listening to it? And as you find the point of conflict, you can start to bridge that gap. Okay? So, Kurt, you're silly. Because they wanted to build it out and sell more things. Okay? So, with that said, I just wanted to go in a deeper nerdy dive into the origin story for you guys because it's beneficial. And for those of you who watched, I know Val has watched and Hans has watched this whole thing from the beginning. Again, the investment of time that you make into these, I do not take lightly. That's why I go so deep, because I want you to get like tangible, measurable, actionable things as a result of spending some time with me every day. I love it. I love our time together. So thank you for it. I hope this is useful. If there is even just one thing that helped you understand something clearer or better, feel free to let me know what it is and share this with your friends in your community. I know a lot of you have entrepreneurial friends who, if you're struggling with things, you know that they are too. I want to be able to help them. Let them watch this, say, hey, I know that this thing is 53 minutes right now long, but like, you need to watch this, okay? I want people to understand that they can do it, that it's not as hard as you're making it out to be, but it's also something that you need to be really intentional and focused on. So whether you're able to do that as a result of watching these and writing down notes and putting stuff together, that's awesome. Or if you go this and you're trying and you're still feeling hung up or whatever, let's invest some time together to work through it, okay? That is why I love doing this, because seeing people be able to connect with their audiences is incredible, okay? So, with that said, go out, work on your origin stories, and all of your epiphany bridges for all of your different things of your business. Like you can tell different origin stories for different things that are happening. Okay? It doesn't have to all be the same story over and over and over again. But so if you have one, tighten it up. Or start to build your catalog of stories. Okay? So have an amazing day, you guys. We will be back tomorrow. I will, I can't remember. There was a comment where I was going to say, well, I'll cover that. Oh, yeah. Aaron was talking about, I'll do a live this week about this publishing platform that I use and how I get like cool graphics on my screen and how I put this cool intro and outro out. So that will happen this week as well. So with that said, have an amazing day. It only takes one story. Talk to you later, guys.